Okay, so good afternoon and many thanks for inviting me. I really enjoy this conference. Thank you for Enrico, Magda, and Thomas for inviting me to discuss this very interesting paper. So it was harder than expected because the paper is very interesting and the motivation is really clear. Many countries are considering the adoption of CBDCs, but some countries like China are much ahead of others like the US. And so the question is why? What's the difference? And what's the motivation for this issuing of CBDC? Maybe it's a way to avoid the dominance of private cryptocurrencies. And it can be considered that crypto indeed threaten the monetary sovereignty of governments. So this paper has a very nice setup where there is a competition between two national fiat currencies. I think of country A as the US and country B as China. And then there is a cryptocurrency that comes in. And the question is, would the country A and B consider introducing a CBDC and in what order? So this is very natural, very interesting. And the paper delivers a host of interesting results. First of all, like the fact that the introduction of a cryptocurrency harms the strong currency that is the US dollar may actually benefit the weaker currency B. The other interesting insight is that country B CBDC poses a greater threat to the crypto than the US dollar CBDC. And third, that there may be a pecking order in the sense that there is more incentive for country B to be a first mover, to start introducing its CBDC before country A, before China, before the US, which is what we see. The Chinese pilot is very well advanced, and in the US they are still resistant from the banking sector to the introduction of the CBDC. And the model itself is really complicated. It's a continuous OLG model with many moving parts and specific assumptions. Maybe we can discuss some details. So since I was very lazy, I decided to base my discussion on the two-period version of the paper, which is in the appendix, and I believe it conveys most intuitions. But we can discuss the full continuous time OLG model if you're interested. So what is the two-period model? You have two countries, A and B. Each of them issues one unit of fiat money. And there is only one consumer, international consumer, who holds a unit of consumption goods, but wants to consume in the next period. So it needs a store of value. And there are two possible store of values. You have the US dollar or the renminbi, okay? So country X backs its currency at date one by a certain volume or a certain number of units of the good, which is actually the price of the currency expressed in the good, which is the numéraire at date one. So the consumer is aware that by investing in currency X, he will get ultimately P1X. And the consumer basically allocates its unit of the consumption good between the two currencies. So the share MA and MA sum to one. And market clearing implies that at date zero, the prices of the currency are equal to the market share because it's the amount of the consumption good that is invested in buying the currency. And each fiat currency has only one total volume of one. Okay. So now, the additional element on top of the store value, the currency also delivers an exogenous convenience yield, which has this particular form. And so I noticed that Simon dropped the Z0 in the presentation, which is already good, simplification. So you have exogenous constants, ZX, which represent the quality of the currency, okay? And so the convenience yield is the product of this quality, Zx, by a certain concave increasing function of the value of the currency. So the idea is that the more people use the currency, the more value it has. The only thing is that there is only one consumer, so it's a bit difficult to find a micro foundation for this convenience yield. So the dollar has many advantages over the renminbi. First of all, it has a higher quality. So ZA is greater than ZB. Second, the currency is used by the governments essentially for seniorage reasons to cover expenditures. Okay, so the country B is weaker than country A in the sense that it has more fiscal needs. So that's the second advantage of the US. And third, for some reason, there is an exorbitant privilege of the US dollar, which is that the country B, China, has to spend money in US dollars. So that there is an additional term, P1X equals PX minus pi x PA, which takes into account the fact that the US dollar basically can print his own money, whereas the Chinese have to spend money in US dollars. So there are three dimensions of superiority of the US dollar, and the paper examines currency competition in several institutional contexts. The first context is when there are only two countries. It's a classical currency competition, and basically at equilibrium, the marginal benefits from holding the two currencies are the same. So the marginal convenience benefit, I'm sorry, this is not what I wanted to do. So the marginal convenience benefit of the US dollar, let's say, minus the inflation tax, so to speak, must be equal to the same for the renminbi, except that the inflation tax is more complicated to compute for the renminbi. And you have a market clearing condition, PA plus PB equals 1. You have two equations, two unknown. So in principle, it should be okay. It turns out that it doesn't necessarily mean there is a unique equilibrium. You need additional conditions. And on top of that, the equilibrium is not unique. And it's not surprising to see that in this equilibrium, country A has a stronger currency. It's a result of the three different privileges of the US dollar. Now, what about a simple variant without exorbitant privilege, where basically the Chinese government would to pay its expenditures in renminbi? And so the formula would be much simpler. The marginal convenience benefit of the two currency minus the tax, the inflation tax, would be the same, and let me call that Y. And then there would be a unique equilibrium without any assumptions, because it's simply PX would be obtained by inverting this number here, Y plus pi X over ZX. So it's very simple. And since V prime is decreasing, V prime minus 1 is also decreasing. So the only thing to find is the value of Y such that the sum of the two is equal to 1. And there would be a very simple, almost explicit equilibrium. So the second benchmark that is considered by the authors is a case where you have on top of that a cryptocurrency. And the way the cryptocurrency is modeled is that it offers a convenient benefit per unit of money, and it's not taxed. It's an exogenous convenience benefit. And so the result is that it's the stronger currency that is hurt, but that the weaker currency may benefit, or at least it's less hurt than the strong currency. So it's not easy to find it in the paper, but if you follow my simple variant, it's obvious. Because in my simple variant, you have the explicit prices, and introducing an exogenous cryptocurrency just gives the prices obtained by the equilibrium condition. And so you see that, and here Y is the exogenous, Y is the convenience benefit of the cryptocurrency. And you see very well why A is hurt more than B. It's just because this ratio here, if you increase Y, then since ZA is larger than ZA is larger than ZB, you find that the impact on currency A is stronger than the impact of currency B. And the other interesting things which comes out of the simple variant is also a property that Simon has, namely that there is a kind of decoupling, kind of buffering the cryptocurrency is in the middle. And as you can see, the prices of the two fiat currencies are independent of the characteristics of the other country. So all if you like, it's the cryptocurrency that absorbs the difference, but there is a decoupling, if you like, of the pricing of the two currencies. I'm not necessarily arguing that this is a better variant, but at least the intuitions are simpler. And then there is a question of introducing a CBDC. And the way it is modeled in the simple version is simply by increasing the convenience benefit parameter of the two countries. And again, who benefits, who is hurt? So they look at the case where y equals 0 for simplicity. And I'm not sure they have resolved for the general case. And I'm a bit bothered by that because they only have existence and uniqueness of equilibrium when y is large. So when y equals 0, it's not necessarily applicable. But with the simple variant, the insights are the same, but they become much clearer, I believe. Exactly because of this decoupling of the two pricing equations. Okay, so the author also considered the case where C is partially backed by assets denominated in AIDs. So it's the idea of the stable coins backed by US dollars, for example. And they show that this can strengthen the dominance of the US dollar. So it's, after all, maybe in the long run, maybe the dollar will benefit from the emergence of stable coins. Okay, so my comments, if I may, for the moment, forget about the continuous time model because it's way too complicated. And I mean, at least to me, I really had a hard time understanding and I was bothered by a technical thing, which is that you characterize the equilibrium by a couple of ordinary differential equations with some boundary conditions, and you invoke the Picard-Lindelof theorem for showing global uniqueness of this equilibrium. But Picard-Lindelof only gives you local existence. It's true that there is global uniqueness, but local existence. So nothing prevents the solution to explode at a finite distance. So, I mean, the fact that you cannot prove existence and uniqueness without parameter restrictions in the two-period case makes me think, I doubt that you get it for free in the continuous time model. I think the continuous time model is way more complicated. So I would abandon for the moment, and I would try to put more economics into the simple two-period model. And I believe the model is a bit stretched, if you like. When you have an OLG model with one representative agent, and well, if you're talking of currency competition, I believe that you have to distinguish domestic and foreign customers, these kind of things, cross-border payments. This representative agent lives for an infinitely short period. And on top of that, there is money in the utility function. So usually you need one or the other, either money in the utility function or OLG store of value. And so there are many aspects which I didn't find so satisfactory. For example, the quantity of money is fixed, but the currency are taxed. Why not having variable quantity and just inflation, no taxing? And more generally speaking, I think there are too many moving parts. So I would really rework the simple two-period model. I would give more intuition for the economic assumptions. I think it produces already a lot of assumptions. It's more transparent. And also it shows the bare bones of the model, that is the type of assumption you make. So in any case, it's a very interesting research program. It's a very promising approach, but you still have work to do, in my opinion. Thank you very much.